in practice, Charmaine, I know that you are, your son is an NDIS participant, you're a support coordinator, but tell us in real life, what does reasonable and necessary mean? How does that play out for a person that's seeing this for the first time?
Well, these are three big words in the NDIS. It's not just reasonable or necessary, it's reasonable and necessary. So the best thing that I can give you is a link to the NDIS page that discusses reasonable and necessary, and also actually Sean's plan management partners did an excellent blog post on reasonable and necessary. So read those because they're really going to help you to understand it. But if I've got 2 minutes, I'm going to just kind of cover what that means, why are those words so important. So the first thing is that reasonable and necessary supports should really do 4 things. They should help you to pursue your goals, and Sean mentioned about formulating goals, increase your independence, increase social and economic participation, and develop your capacity to take part in the community. And they're really broad, overarching kind of objectives of the scheme, and so that's why reasonable and necessary supports need to fall into that. Sounds easy, but wait, because there's more. Reasonable and necessary supports need to be related to your disability, not include day-to-day living costs, that's a big one, represent value for money, be likely to be effective and beneficial, and they take into account informal supports, community supports, and mainstream supports. There's a few things that are definitely out when it comes to reasonable and necessary supports. It's not related to your disability. Nope. If it duplicates other supports funded somewhere else in the NDIS, if it relates to those day-to-day living costs, or if it's likely to cause harm. So it's a lot, and I don't expect people to remember it, but you can link back to it and almost do your own kind of test. But I thought I'd test a couple of items. So there's lots of, I think, parents that have registered. So one of the most commonly requested items is therapies. And they fall into the broader support purpose called capacity building. So yes, therapies are generally considered reasonable and necessary, but you'll need to look at evidence base. So the NDIS will fund things that are proven to be beneficial, that have an evidence base, and expect the agency to be looking for recommendations. So if you've got a speech therapist or an OT or a behaviour therapist or a psychologist, they'll be looking for their recommendations for how many hours that might be reasonable to fund. So let's switch support purpose and have a look at a core support, and that might be daily activities or social and community participation. Yeah, definitely, this is an area that the NDIS fund. But in this case, the NDIS is going to start looking at what would be reasonable for an informal support to provide. So while it might be, the NDIS might really expect that parents of an infant or a young child would be contributing to all of their personal care. As that individual gets older, the NDIS would start to consider funded supports, so personal care and social and community participation for an adult with a disability.
So, for example, if you've got a child, the parents are expected to do the bathing and feeding of that child no matter what?
Well, there's a reasonable expectation. I think what we have to understand here is that disability is incredibly broad, and some people have disabilities with very high physical support needs where that might be a 2-person job. So then would the NDIS fund 1 person or 2 people? So there's never an answer that says the NDIS fund this or they don't fund that. It's always personal circumstances. And then it always tracks back to your goals and aspirations. So there's never a simple answer to reasonable and necessary, but I've got one more to throw at you, which comes from the support purpose of capital. And very commonly people say, what assistive technology might the NDIS fund? Well, they'll fund assistive technology that increases independence or reduces person-to-person supports. So some of the things that I see a lot of funded is mobility aids, communication aids, hearing and vision aids. So, that's kind of very easy to be reasonable and necessary. But I've seen knockbacks on other things. The most classic one that we saw a few years ago, a lot of requests for things like, I don't know if I can use the word Thermomix, or let's just say multi-purpose cooking implement. It's highly desirable for many 45-year-old women who all in my peer group. But look, the NDIS didn't fund those. Fair enough. And the reason why, my understanding of the reason why they didn't was because it didn't represent value for money. They felt that the combined tasks that it achieved could be purchased more cheaply somewhere else. But also there was that blow with safety. So I'm not sure 100% where the reasonable and necessary failed on that, but there would have been 2 points there. Great. The other things that I've seen knockbacks are things like pool hoists where they don't reduce person-to-person supports, or vehicle modifications in older cars. and iPads. They've really become that kind of everyday item that the NDIS is saying we don't fund that. Again, this is not me making that decision. This is me kind of interpreting the legislation. So I hope that helps people follow the links, read the blog, and understand those words, reasonable and necessary.
So guys, hopefully that's got everyone onto the sort of idea of the amount of preparation that you should do in preparing for your first plan meeting and getting your first plan ready. So it's prepare, prepare, prepare.